Hi, in this video we're going to look at profit and the different ways you can measure profit, and I'm also going to highlight my favourite kind of profit, which is operating profit. And I like operating profit because it really helps you see the underlying performance of the business. You're not seeing that performance masked by issues like interest payments on debt or tax. So if that doesn't make any sense, let's get an example and hopefully that will make things clearer. So I'm going to look at a company, it's a company, we'll call it Company A, and it makes tables. So there we go, Company A. Last year it got £100 million revenue from tables. And then we had the cost of goods. Now that's the costs that are directly relevant to the making of those tables. So things like the wood and things like paying the staff who are actually on the assembly line and directly making the tables. So that cost of goods is 30 million. And so we then get a gross profit taking 30 away from 100. Which is 70 million, that's the gross profit. But the cost of goods, it didn't include things like the sales team. It didn't include the head office costs. It didn't include paying rent for the factory. All those things go into operating costs. So we'll say that's 30 million as well. And then we've got another cost. It's an accounting cost. It's depreciation. So 2 years ago, Company A, they bought a new assembly line. They spent £25 million on it. 25 million in cash went out of the company 2 years ago. But the accountants, they spread out this cost over 5 years. It's an accounting cost. So we call it, it's called depreciation. We'll say that's £5 million this year. So that's 25 million over 5 years. 5 million this year. So taking the operating costs and the depreciation costs away, we get operating profit of £35 million. Now, you've probably also heard, often people talk about pre-tax profit. So we've then got interest payments on some debt the company has, so that's 5 million. So that then gives us pre-tax profit of 30 million. Then we've got some tax, 5 million. And then the after-tax profit is 25 million. So that sounds great. But why, you think, am I so keen on the operating profit? Surely profit after tax is the best figure. That's what the company's left at the end, having paid its interest payments on its debt and having paid its tax. It's got 25 million. Well, let's look at another company, a very similar company, Company B. And it's also in the tables business. And so it's got the revenue of 100 million and the gross profit of 70 million, and then we get the operating profit of 35 million. So Company A and Company B, they're both making tables and they're both ending up with exactly the same operating profit of 35 million pounds each. But Company B doesn't have any debt, so it's not paying any interest. So its pre-tax profit is 35 million. And it's also not paying any tax. So its post-tax profit is also 35 million pounds. So if you look at the post-tax profit figure, you think, wow, Company B is way better than Company A, because Company A, it's got a post-tax profit of 25 million, and Company B, it's got a post-tax profit of 35 million. And yes, Company B is a bit better. It's not paying any tax because it had some tax losses a few years ago, and so it doesn't have to pay any tax yet. And it's nice that it doesn't have any debt. But really, that much higher post-tax profit overstates the advantages that company B has. It'll probably start paying tax next year or the year after. And also the issues about debt and about having debt or not having debt are much more finely balanced than you might think. And actually there's good arguments for saying that it's actually good for companies to have debt. And we'll look at that in another video. And really, when you're comparing A and B, you don't want to get obsessed about the financial structure of the business. Does it have debt or does it not? Because, as I say, the pros and cons of that are quite finely balanced. And you don't want to get obsessed either about tax, because probably in a year or two, company B will start paying tax again. So really what counts is the operating profit. That tells you what the core business is doing, and we can see, because A has operating profit of 35 million and B has operating profit of 35 million, that their underlying business is very similar and performing in a similar way. So that's just a brief introduction to how operating profit works, but hopefully I've convinced you that it's a really useful figure, and if I was only going to look at one profit figure for a company, I'd ask to see operating profit. But we'll come back and look at other issues to do with profit in more detail in future videos. And we'll also look at the financial structure of companies and when debt is good for a company and when it's bad. And until then, see you soon.